Hello everybody, this is Pastor Jason with Wednesday Night's Devotion. My topic tonight is Abigail. I'm going to be talking about wisdom in a toxic relationship. It's often in life, it's not in the easiest of times, but the hardest that can bring out the best of people. Abigail's life is a powerful reflection of this very truth. Instead of wallowing in self-pity and defeat over her circumstance, Abigail acted courageously and used great wisdom when faced with a threatening scenario. So tonight, what can we learn from Abigail's story all these years later? Her story is found in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 25. At a time when Saul was king, Samuel the prophet had just died, and David and his men had traveled down into the desert of Maon. And this is where the conflict begins. In 1 Samuel chapter 25, verses 2 and 3. There was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. The man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. She was a woman of good understanding and beautiful appearance, but the man was harsh and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. The Bible describes Abigail as being an intelligent and beautiful woman, but sadly, she lived in a toxic relationship. So to say that she was in a bad situation would be an understatement. Nabal was a very wealthy man, but he was also described as harsh and evil in his dealings. Now, throughout chapter 25, we're told that David and 600 of his men had shown great kindness to Nabal and his workers. They'd protected them when the servants had cared for their sheep out in the desert. They were faithful to never take anything from them at a time when dangers in the desert lurked all around. This was a huge blessing from David to Nabal and his family. Their protection gave them the ability to finish their work and prosper from their business dealings. So when David sent words of kindness to Nabal, asking him for a simple act of hospitality for his men, which was common in this culture, imagine his anger when this hard-hearted man responded with such rudeness and contempt. Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and my water and the meat that I've slaughtered from my shearers and give them to men coming in from who knows where?" So David says to his men in verse 13, "Put on your swords." So they do, and David put on his, and about 400 went up with David while 200 stayed with the supplies. So now Nabal's servants must have been afraid for their lives when they hear that David was going to come and attack them. And they knew exactly where to find help. They send word to Nabal's wife, Abigail. Of Abigail's history, we only know that she came from Carmel, but we see quick reasoning and sound judgment in her character, for she knew just what to do. She was not afraid to act quickly. We read in verses 14 through 17 of chapter 25. Now, one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, "Look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master." And he reviled them, but the men were very good to us, and we were not hurt, nor did we miss anything as long as we accompanied them. When we were in the fields, there was a wall. They were a wall to us, both night and day, and the time there than keeping the sheep. Now therefore, know and consider what you will do. For harm is determined against our master and against all his household, for he is such a scoundrel that one cannot speak to him. So we've got a problem. So the first thing I want you to understand is do not let fear hold you back. Move forward in God's courage and wisdom. Abigail made haste. She hurried. She wasted no time to get to David. She knew that there was imminent trouble. So no matter how difficult or threatening the situations, God's power within us is greater than we can ever fully see or comprehend. He's able to use any of us, even though we may feel insignificant or powerless, for His greater good. Abigail showed great wisdom in acting quickly and swiftly and speaking honorably to David. She took control of the situation that was potentially dangerous for them. She didn't just sit around and blame her husband and remain stuck in fear. Wouldn't we grow a lot if we were to act more like Abigail? She sent food with her servants up ahead. She chose wisely to act alone without Nabal knowing. And she came riding her donkey towards David and his men, and she met him with honor and respect for how he had cared for her people instead of hiding or cowering down. Abigail moved forward towards the danger, knowing that God was surely with her, and doing so saved her household. Secondly, we can learn from Abigail is she was humble and kind, and she sought peace with those around her. In verse 23, Abigail saw David. She hastened to dismount from her donkey, fell on her face before David, and bowed down to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "On me, O Lord, on me this iniquity be. And please let your maidservant speak in your ears and hear the words of your maidservant." So not only did she not allow fear to hold her back, she was humble and kind when she met David. Abigail had the courage and strength to shoulder the blame for something she didn't do. She begged forgiveness on behalf of her entire household. And God used that moment to show David how wrong it would be to take revenge on his own way and kill all those innocent servants. This was a pivotal moment for Abigail because she had no idea how David would respond. David could kill her. David could take revenge on her. But still, she chose to do the right thing. She looked beyond herself. She acted with humility and compassion. She sought to make peace with the very one that her husband had angered, and she'd asked for a chance to speak and make right the wrong. Thirdly, understand that our words and actions are powerful. We need to take a look at the bigger picture. In verse 28, she said, "Please forgive the trespasses of your maidservant. For the Lord will certainly make for your Lord an enduring house, because my Lord fights the battles of the Lord, and evil is not found in him throughout his days. Yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life, and the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living." Talking about Saul, Abigail knew her words and actions were powerful and carefully thought through each and every one. She understood the bigger picture of this story was much more significant than the one moment. So she reminded David of how important it was that God was building greatness in his life, that the Lord himself was fighting for David. She had heard the stories of David, no doubt, how Saul had pursued his life and that David had used a sling to kill a giant and spoke in such a way to bring him back to God's bigger picture. All through David's life, God had fought for him, his beloved, and that very God was now fighting for Abigail as well. So fourthly, it's a reminder that a true warrior is loyal and faithful, thinking of others before themselves. In verses 30 and 31, "It shall come to pass when the Lord has done for my Lord according to all that good that is spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel, that this will be no grief to you nor offense to my Lord, either that you have shed blood without cause, or that the Lord has avenged himself. But when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant." Abigail fought to protect her husband and her house. She was not just thinking of herself, but all of those that she loved. She was loyal and honored God and her family and all that she did. She chose to show great respect towards David, reminding him that God would bring to his life blessing at every good thing that he had already promised. And with wisdom and discernment, she went to David and asked only for the thing at the end of her plea, that God brought him success. He would remember her. Abigail was incredibly faithful in her words, her actions, and her demonstration of love for her servants and her family. And she knew that if she could win David's favor in this situation, that her workers and family would be spared. So fifthly, remember, God will fight for you. You're never alone. In verses 32 and 33, when David said to Abigail, "Blessed is the Lord God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. And blessed is your advice, and blessed are you, because you have kept me this day from coming to bloodshed and avenging myself with my own hand." God fought for Abigail, just as he so faithfully fights for us still today. He did not leave her on her own, but he gave her favor in the sight of David. So as God worked through Abigail and spared the lives of an entire household, she would use timely wisdom in telling Nabal what had happened. Because of his drunkenness of the evening, she waited until the next morning to share the whole story. And the Bible says that she told him of all of these things, and his heart failed him. And then 10 days later, Nabal dies of a heart attack. But God took care of Abigail, and the story goes on to say that when David learned that Nabal had died, he sent word to her, asking her to be his wife. David showed honor to Abigail by taking care of her. The Lord provided for her and all of her household because of the wisdom and the courage that she portrayed in her current family. And through her good judgment and choosing to act humbly and brave, God showed himself strong on her behalf. So what should we do in toxic relationships or in a toxic world? We should live fearless in faith and grace. Oftentimes in our lives, we're faced with difficult battles, hard struggles, and we may feel like we've been left all alone. But God is always with us, leading us with His spirit of wisdom and discernment, pouring out His strength, pouring out His grace, reminding us that He is the greatest power that propels us forwards. We do not have to be stuck in our defeat or in our fear, thinking that our situation will never change. As we are faithful to His word and His leadership, God can and will do in just a moment what may take years for ourselves to do. Abigail's story reminds us again that God sees the heart, and He works powerfully on behalf of those who choose to follow Him. We're also reminded in Isaiah 41:10, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed. I am your God. I will strengthen you, help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." The psalmist David would write in 118:6, "The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me?" Maybe your story is very different from Abigail's, yet you're still feeling like your future is troubled or threatened, possibly by illness or by loss or uncertainty or a difficult relationship yourself or a toxic environment, if you will. Rest assured, God knows your way, and He understands the burden that you carry or the burdens that you carry, and He is fighting for you right now, even when it's hard to see the full big picture. Keep following His lead. Press in close to His presence. He is faithful to give you grace for every day and power to walk through the most difficult of times. Your story is not over yet. He's bringing you greater beauty and strength through every hard moment. God is able to carry you straight through. Keep pressing forward. There is good and blessing still in store. Again, to close, from the psalmist David in Psalms 27, verses 13 and 14. "I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. In our toxic surroundings, use the reminder of the wisdom of Abigail and press in and find strength in the Lord. Blessings to you today and your family from our family at the Fife Church. You have a blessed evening or a blessed day. Thank you very much for watching.